Okay. Good.
And nobody else is on. But now the U.S. tariffs on Europe, linking Greenland and to Arctic missile defense. How come it's so large here up here? A huge picture over here. How do we get this to the big? Maybe I should move it down. Look at the screen, Penny. It just got double.
Maybe exit it.
Okay. 1 second. It's gonna close us out. Okay, this sounds.
Hello.
Hello, good Vach.
Ja.
Hello, good Vach. Okay. So. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Harold, Temmie said he thinks you're going away. Are you going out of town?
Yeah, we're going tomorrow to Cancun.
Good. Okay.
Oh, very cool.
How long you going for?
A week.
That's nice.
Yeah. I'm going to visit my fentanyl.
Who?
No, I can't get my drugs across the border, so I have to go get it myself.
Yeah,
Ask
yeah.
Trump to help you.
Yeah.
Where's Magda?
She's in Greenland.
Another negotiator.
Coming. She's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
She's new ambassador to Venezuela. We're involved. Where are we holding? I forgot already.
All right, Bob.
Okay, great.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, everybody. We are on Perek Vav.
I don't think we said something about the service.
We left off Perek Hay at the end, where Zeresh, Haman's wife, advises Haman to build a gallows 50 amas high and to go to Achashverosh to get permission to hang Mordechai on those gallows. So Balaylahu Nadidash Nasamela. On that night, the Melech couldn't sleep. Vayomer Laviat Sefer HaZichronot. He commanded to bring the book of memories, Divrei Yamim, which recounts the history. Vayuni Krayim Lifnei Melech, and they were read. So the Medrash says, again, we've been seeing this before. Whenever it says Hamelech, and it doesn't say Hamelech Achashverosh, just Hamelech, it'll sometimes refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That the various, the fasts, the tefillos, had caused HaKadosh Baruch Hu to also nadida, that he was in distress like Klal Yisrael was in distress. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't sleep, but it's an allegory. There might have been Hester Panim, where Hashem is not active, as if he's asleep. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but if Klal Yisrael does tshuva, he wakes up. Now, the Medrash also says, referring to the sleep of Achashverosh being disturbed, that he saw a vision of Haman killing him. That was the vision that he had. Remember, Esther has now invited him and Haman to a party. He has there have been suspicions laid in Achashverosh's mind. We know what sleep people dream about things that happen during the day before they dream. So this must have been on Achashverosh's mind. That's Rava in the Gemara says that he was thinking, why is Esther inviting Haman to this Mishnah? He's actually thinking maybe there's a conspiracy between Esther and Haman. Well, he says to himself, how come I don't have any friends who will tell me about this conspiracy? Well, he says, this is the Gemara recounting all of this. Maybe somebody did me a favor and I didn't repay the favor. And I didn't have a korasato. And that's why nobody is informing me of this conspiracy that might be existing between Esther and Haman. So that's what led to him wanting to bring this book of remembrances, the Zichronot, so maybe he would identify that someone had done him a toiva that he hasn't repaid. There's another medrash, Lakach Tov, that the reason why Achashverosh was having problems sleeping is he suspected that somebody was poisoning him and that he was going to cause execution of the people that are in charge of preparing his food. But they reminded him that, well, what do you mean? Esther and Haman also ate of the food. And they didn't have any problem. Now, The Gemara in Megillah Tesvava Bebeis. Rav Tanchum, Nadidash Nas Malko Shel Oila. That it refers to the sleep of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'Rabbanan Amri Nadadu Al Yoinim, Nadadu Tachtoinim. Both in Shamayim and both on earth. And Rava Amar Shnas HaMelech Achashverosh Mamash. There was Achashverosh. And the Gemara goes into this thing that he thinks that maybe there's a conspiracy. Now, the digduk of the words Vayu Nikra'im, the Gemara says, Melamed Shenikra'im Me'leihem. It was somebody, the Malach read it. It read by itself, like playing piano. Like we say in the Sanat Tokef, Vatiftach et Sefer Zichronos, Ume'elav Yikareh. That on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the books of Chaim, the books of Mesim open up, and it's read in front of Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that's what happens in Beis Din Shemala, that the things that are written are read sort of automatically. Rashi brings a couple of things. That it was a nace, that because this perek is the fulcrum on which Sefer Esther turns, right? And the fact that he had problems sleeping was a nace. Rashi says, "Derech hamlochim kishnasam noidedes." When kings have problems sleeping, oimim lifneim mishalim b'sichos. They bring people in to read them parables and speeches. Ushnasam chazer eslam. It's pretty boring. They fall asleep. Pasuk Beis. Vayimatzei katuv. In the Sefer Zichronos, it was found written, Asher Higid Mordechai al Biktanav Teresh. The story when Mordechai had overheard a plot to assassinate Achashverosh from Biktanav Teresh. They notice in Perek Beis, he was called Big Son, without the Aleph. Here it's Big Sonah. Shnei Sarisei HaMelech, 2 officers, Mishamrei Asaf. They were the guardians of the palace. Asher bikshu l'shloach yad b'melech Achashverosh. So how come here, instead of the word big son, it says big sanah? So Haman's sons were the Sofrim who had recorded the story of Mordechai telling about Big Son of a Savior. So, to make it look less impressive, the sons of Haman had written, Big Son, O Seresh. They weren't sure who was guilty. It wasn't like both of them. They said either Big Son or Teresh. Which also implying that one of them was innocent. And that because of Mordechai's revealing of it, somebody had been executed inappropriately. And which would lead that Mordechai is not deserving of a reward. So the word O got removed, right? The Aleph went to the end of Big Son, and the Vav went to Teresh. So it referred to 2 people, Big Son of Seresh, that both of them were equally guilty, and that clearly Mordechai had saved Achashverosh's life, and certainly was deserving of reward, which he had never received. The Malbim learns that the Achashverosh had forgotten who had saved his life. He remembered that Esther had told him, because remember, Mordechai had communicated through Esther. So what Achashverosh remembered was that Esther had told him. And Haman is the one who had given the idea of getting a new queen through a beauty pageant. So Esther had become his queen through Haman. Now, these Divrei Hayomim is a history of the king and the country, and this is kept by the king himself. Remember, the Malbim makes a difference between Divrei Hayomim, which is the history books, and the Sefer Zichronos. Sefer Zichronos, the Malbim says, is like a diary. So in the Divrei Hayomim, Haman had written his own name, as he was the one who had saved Achashverosh. But when Achashverosh read his own diary, it was not Haman, rather it was Mordechai. And now he's becoming aware that Haman was fraudulent in the whole Bigsan Vaserish issue. And now it makes him even more suspicious that maybe Esther and Haman are working against him. The Gemara in Megillah says, "Vaymatzei katu, melamed sheshimshi moichek v'Gavriel koisef." That one of the sons of Haman were writing, and Gavriel was writing, and Shimshi was trying to erase. And we talked about the Aleph, right? Pasuk Gim. Vayomer HaMelech ma nasa yikaru gdula leMordechai zeh. Mordechai asks the people around him, what was done to reward Mordechai on the fact that he saved my life? Vayomru narei HaMelech mishrasav lo nasa imo davar. Nothing was done. So Haman has already been honored. Haman is like second to the king. But nothing had been done for Mordechai. Now, the Gemara in Megillah Tet Zion says that these people who were working in the palace of the king, they didn't like Mordechai, but they hated Haman. And the Imo refers to Haman, that yes, you have rewarded somebody, but not to Mordechai, who was deserving of it, but rather to Haman. That's how the Me'am Loezins. Now, the Mishpat Zov brings the Gemara that Amar Rav lo mipnei shoavim es Mordechai mipnei shesonim es Haman. They were also haters of Haman, and they told of lo nasa imo davar because of their hatred of Haman. The question is, it really was the truth that nothing had been done to Mordechai. Why do you have to go through this shot? I mean, what does the Gemara have to tell us? I mean, that in fact, Mordechai had not been rewarded. And what does it make a difference to us, whether it was because of a hatred of Haman, because they like Mordechai? So in Sefer Tehillim, it says, Asher PM Diber Shav V'iminam Yamin Sheker. It refers to when the Goyim of the world speak about Jews, that it's all lies. So there's got to be a reason for why they said it, because otherwise they would lie and make it bad for the Jews. But it wasn't because of their love of Mordechai, the Gemara testifies, but rather that they hated Haman. And they say, and in their language, because Achashverosh has asked Yikar Ugdula, which means something big. And they just said, Lo nasai modavar. That means according to them, that it's just the as long as they did some, as long as the Melech did something small for Mordechai, that would suffice. And you can see that even though these non-Jews are in a sense doing a toiva for Mordechai, and it looks like they're doing something good, their kavana is not good. And I want to read what's brought by Rav Volbe, one of the Rosh Yeshivas in the last 50 years, who was a Musar master. He brings the story of the king Victor Emmanuel, who was the king of Italy. And he had turned to the chief rabbi of Rome. He was apparently had a relationship with him. And he asked the rabbi, the chief rabbi, that there are many places in Tanakh that it says by tzaddikim that they committed some kind of what appears to be an aveira. And Chazal have some answer for it, that it's really not kiposhut pshat, but it's not really an aveira. And they lessen what appears to be the sin that maybe one of the heroes of the Tanakh did. But when it comes to Rishoim, who might have done something good, also Chazal come and say, nah, they really didn't have the right intent. They really weren't intending good for the Jews. For example, it says, Vayavo palit, vayaged le'Avram ha'ivri, kinishbachi. It says the refugee came and told Avram Avinu that Lot was taken captive. What did Chazal say? The palit was Og Melech HaBashan, that wanted to take Sarah as his wife. He wanted to kill Avram. The pasuk seems to say that the palit did a toiva to Avram, and Chazal turned it completely around and say no, he wanted to take Sarah. It says Vayavo Esav min hasadeh v'hu ayev. Right? What does Chazal say? Ayev b'ritzicha. He was murdering all day. That's why he was tired. And Victor Emmanuel, the king, why don't we just say he was tired? Because he was hunting. The chief rabbi, didn't give him an answer right away. But in a few days, the king, this Victor Emmanuel, had made a big feast. And he invited the rabbi as well of Rome. And he put him right next to him. They brought the king a big golden platter. And they brought him water to wash his hands. The king took off his expensive ring so he could wash his hands properly. So the rabbi took the ring so that nobody would see it and put it in his pocket. the king ate the meal. He remembered that what happened to his ring? So he called the head of the palace. He told him, close the doors. He suspected one of the servants had stolen the ring. So the head of the palace came back after a while and said, nobody has taken the ring. Or nobody was admitting to it. So the king commanded, well, we'll have to beat them or torture them to get the information. Who's the one that stole the ring? So the rabbi now turns to the king and says, why are you beating them? How do you know that they necessarily took the ring? So the king looked at the rabbi and says, listen, you know your business. I know my business. I know the servants, they're most likely to be the ones that stole it. At that point, the rabbi took out the ring and showed it to him. And so the king asked the rabbi, well, what are you doing with the ring? So the rabbi said, I saw it on the table. It looked very nice. So I wanted it and I took it. So the king didn't believe the rabbi and said, you tell me which one of the servants gave you the ring. He still believed it was one of the servants who took it. So the rabbi said, listen, none of the servants had given it to me. I just wanted it and I took it for myself. And I'm giving it back. The king didn't believe him at all. He said, Rabbi, if I had left all my possessions in a room with you, you would never touch it. How can you tell me that you're protecting the real thief? So the rabbi now told the king, I have an answer to the question you asked me before. So even though you found the king on my person, you saw it with your own eyes, and I told you I wanted it and I stole it, you didn't believe it. Because you know what my midos are in general. So too, basically, he told them, Chazal understood the real midos of these people, whether it was Esav or whether it was Og Melech HaBashan, the same way that the king understood the midos of the rabbi. So here, these Narei HaMelech that did a toiva to Mordechai, they did it sort of against their will. They really weren't happy about it. Begrudgingly, exactly. Pasuk Daled. Vayomer HaMelech mi b'chatzer. So the king asks, who is in the courtyard? Ve'aman ba lechatzar beit HaMelech echitz. That's Haman. Remember, the wife told him, go build a gallows. You're going to have to get permission from Achashverosh to hang Mordechai. Le'mor lamelech litlasus Mordechai ala eitz asher hechin lo. Here is where the Medrash says that on hearing Mordechai's name, Achashverosh fell asleep, and he had the dream that Haman was hovering over him and with a sword to kill him. And that's when the king awoke and said, who's in the courtyard? And then when the Narim told him it's Haman, he says the dream is coming true.
How come Haman went to see Ahasuerus without permission and without advance letting the king calling him?
Perhaps because he was the second in command, he was allowed to come in more than the other people. Maybe the law didn't apply to him.
Like for Esther, no, and for Haman, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you remember, it was Haman who came up with that law in the first place, because Haman wanted to identify who's going in and out from the king, because he was concerned that people were going to come in to try to change the edict. So maybe he made an exception for himself. Now, remember, this is in the middle of the night, right? The party that Esther has invited Haman and Achashverosh to is the next morning. And Haman wants to hang Mordechai right away. So the Alshich points out it's still nighttime. He was so anxious to get rid of Mordechai, Zeresh told him, wait until morning. And coming in, when he did, especially when Chazal tell us that he was having a dream about Haman trying to kill him, and he all of a sudden shows up, that it led to his downfall. Now, when it says Asher Hechin Lo, means him. That the Gemara, the Tana Megillah, Ted Zion says, it refers to the gallows that really is prepared for Haman. Without realizing it, he had prepared the gallows to ultimately use on himself. Just like the edict to kill the Jews was reversed, and the enemies of the Jews were killed. The Vilna Gaon says from the moment those gallows were erected, it was always meant for Haman. And mitzvahs require hachana. You have to prepare a lulav, you have to prepare matzah. So there's hachana. And there's a mitzvah that what mitzvah is being performed? The destruction of Amalek. That's in the name of the Belzereb.
Isn't this the night of Pesach, first night of Pesach?
It's the night after, right? It's because we're now at
The next
night
morning.
of the 16th.
Yeah.
Now, the Meforshim say like this: the Nari HaMelech said, "Hinei." So pasuk K. Vayomru Nari HaMelech elav, Hinei Haman omed b'chatzer, vayomer HaMelech yavo. So the word Hinei is oftentimes used with some kind of new thing. For example, Vayomer liYosef, Hinei avicha choleh. Now, Chazal tell us that prior to Yaakov Avinu, when it comes to somebody dying, they would just die. So Yaakov davened that he should become sick. Yaakov was the first person that went through an illness that led to his death. So a person could then organize his affairs, give brachas, etc. He davened that he should become a chol. This was also, Haman was not used to coming in so early in the morning. So it's again a dvar chidush. Pasuk Vav. Vayavo Haman. Vayomer lo HaMelech. Malasos ba'ish asher HaMelech hafetz pikaro. Haman comes and Melech says to Haman, what should be done for someone that the king wants to honor? Vayomer Haman bilibo. We've learned all along, Haman is a very arrogant individual. L'miach batz HaMelech lasos yakar yoser mimeni. Who else does the king want to shower honor on more than me? Achashverosh is convinced that Haman is coming in the middle of the night when most people are asleep to kill him. He's had a dream about it. And Achashverosh is thinking that Haman wants to assassinate me. And he's about to be told as well that he wants to get rid of Mordechai. Now, what does Achashverosh know about Mordechai? He's his real friend who protected him and saved his life. So Achashverosh starts a plan. And the beginning of the plan is that Haman is going to personally bestow the honors on the arch enemy, Mordechai. Now, when he was talking to his Narim, Achashverosh says, Manasa Yikar Ugdula. Right? Here, he just says, Yikar. Right? Asher HaMelech Chafetz Bikaro. Or Lasos Yikar Yoser Mimeni. There's no Gedula mentioned. The Meforshim want to say, if the Melech had said Gedula, he would have understood that it doesn't refer to him because he's already as godly as you can get, at least regarding power. Gedula refers to power because he already promoted Haman above everybody. Yakar, which is covered, there's no limit to that. Nobody would refuse more honor, and certainly someone like Haman who was very arrogant.
Since he's not, at least I'm seeing here, since he's not mentioning anything referring to a monetary reward, he feels that Achashverosh wants to honor somebody, give him honor, but it has to be somebody who's wealthy, who does not desire more money because he has enough, and therefore it's only me that Achashverosh is referring to.
Very good, because the reward is going to be an honorific thing. Being carried around on the horse with the royal robes. It's not money. Very good. Now, the Gemara in Megillah has something very interesting. You notice it says, Vayomer Haman bilibo. He said to himself, Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. Rabbi Eliezer said, Esther was said Baruch HaKodesh. Shenemar, Vayomer Haman bilibo. Whoever wrote the book of Esther, how did they know what Haman is saying in his heart? Well, it's Ruach HaKodesh. However, the Gemara says, Omar Shmuel. No, I would have given a better proof for Ruach HaKodesh that Esther, the Sefer Esther was written Ruach HaKodesh. And Amar, Kimu v'kiblu. Kimu lamala masha kiblu lamata. That was what it was. Hashem accepted what happened in Lamata as well. How do you don't know that unless you have Ruach HaKodesh? Pasuk Zayin. Vayomer Haman el HaMelech. Ish asher HaMelech hafetz bikaro. The person you want to give honor to. Yaviu levush malchus asher lavosh bo HaMelech. The royal clothing that the king has worn. And the sus, the horse, asher achav el HaMelech, that the king is ridden on. Va'asher nitan keter malchut b'rosho. And the royal crown that has sat on Achashverosh's head. Bring those items. Rashi is going to tell us, because later on, the king doesn't say anything about the throne, about the crown. That Achashverosh's face became red. So later on, Haman didn't mention it again. Because again, we know that Achashverosh is suspecting Haman of assassinating him. Now, when it says Barosho, Vasher Nitan Keter Malchut Barosho, Rashi says that Haman is suggesting that the crown be put on the person's head who they're trying to honor. Ibn Ezra says that the crown here is being referred to a crown that's put on the head of the horse, because they used to put a crown on the king's horse while the king was riding it. Nobody else could ride that way. The Malbim and the Alshich also say that the horse that's being referred to is the horse that he rode on his coronation day. This is adding to the suspicion that Haman had. We remember that Haman is a Moed b'Malchus. He's trying to kill him. And the fact that Haman is asking for all this is only making it worse for him. By the way, there are other Rishonim the Medrash brings that it mentions, like it says, Vayomer Haman b'libov. It says, Harishoim Birshus Liba. This is the Esther Rabbah, the Medrash on Esther. Evil people are controlled by their desires, right? Because Lev, Moach is thought. And whenever Chazal and the Torah refers to Lev, it refers to your desire. Rishoim Birshus Liba. Evil people are controlled by their desires. Like it says, Vayomer Esav bilibo, Omer Naval bilibo, right? Naval, who was a glutton with David HaMelech. Vayomer Yeravam bilibo. Aval hatzadikim libam birshusa. Tzadikim are in control of their heart. It says, V'chana hi medaberet al liba. Chana, the mother of Shmuel, talks to her heart, is in control of her heart. Vayasem Daniel al libo. Vayomer David el libo. It says, Vayomer Hashem el libo in Bereshis. And that's why Chazal say, Akina v'atayva v'akavod motzi'in esadam min ha'olam. Pasuk Tes. V'nason al vush v'asus. So they should put the royal clothing on the person and the horse. They should give the horse ayad ish misra melech apartimi. The horse will be paraded around by one of the king's officers. And they're going to dress up the person with the royal robes. And they're going to parade him around on the horse in the town. And they will call in front of him. Thus will be done for the king who wants to give a reward. Now the partamim are other royal assistants. Rav Arama learns that what's this thing about having a person call it out? Because he wants to make sure he is promoting himself, but he knows it might cause the king's jealousy. That if someone is being paraded like this, so people will think that this person is second to the king. So by having the person announce this is being done because the king is wants to repay a good deed, but it has nothing to do with his status in the government. Pasuk Yud. Vayomer HaMelech leHaman, Maher, quickly. Kach es alvush v'sasus kasher dibarta. So get everything you asked for, the royal robes, the horse. V'aseichei leMordechai Yehudi, and you're going to perform this for Mordechai Yehudi HaYoshev b'Shar Melech, who's at the gate of the king. Al tapel davar, don't miss anything. We call it sheri barta. Haman, the king is trying to rush because he and Haman have to meet Esther at another Mishnah. And Achashverosh wants to make sure, because he knows that Esther has some kind of relationship with Mordechai, that if Esther asks him in their conversation, had Mordechai ever been given a reward for saving the king's life, he would be able to say yes. It was an oversight, but it had been fixed. The Me'am Loez says, you notice everything that Achashverosh did was done in a rush, right? He executed Vashti. He chose Esther. The whole agreeing to Haman with the edict to wipe out the Jews. So again, here the Maher, it's typical of Achashverosh of just jumping into things. Now, the Gemara in Megillah says, V'aseichei leMordechai. Amar le manu Mordechai. So Haman said, well, which Mordechai? Amar le Yehudi. Mordechai the Jew. Amar le Tuva Mordechai Ikebuda. There's a lot of Mordechai, a lot of Jews with the name of Mordechai. Amar le HaYoshev b'Shar Melech. The one who's sitting at the gate. Chazal say, Harodef achar hakavod, hakavod borech mimenu. Someone who runs after honor, the honor runs away from him. How hard a person runs after honor, that's how far it escapes from him. Now, in the Targum Sheni of the Megillah, and in one of the Midrashim, after Haman hears this, he says, what do you mean? You and I signed an edict that we sent to all the provinces that we have to kill all the Jews. How are we going to do this covet for Mordechai the Jew? So according to this Midrashim, the Melech said, these books that I sent, I'm mevatel them. And we're going to give the covet to Mordechai. And that's what he meant. Al tapel divar mikol asher dibarta. And he sent Charvonah and other officers with Haman to make sure that Haman didn't leave anything out. And they went with him. The Yaros Dvash, who is Rav Yonasan Eibshitz, we've been learning many times that Achashverosh also was a Sonei Yehudi. So what's all of a sudden the Melech is so caught up in giving honor and rewards to Mordechai the Jew? Hey, Susie, you have to get, no, please bring just bring my briefcase. Now, we've learned before that his astrologers had told him that in the future, a Jew is going to sit on the throne after him. And listen to this, says the Yaros Dvash. by putting the royal robes and the crown on the head of Mordechai, it's going to fulfill fulfill that prophecy. He's not going to have to physically become the king. This will fulfill what the astrologers have told me, and it will be Mekayim, and I don't have to worry about the Jews anymore. The Vilna Gaon learns that in Tfilas Chana, when it says Urushoim b'choshech yidmu, it refers to the Nes of Purim. Okay, Susie, I just have to plug this in 1 second, because my computer is going to go dead. 1 second. Is it plugged in? Thank you, Susie. Okay. I want to read the following medrash. I want to read the following Gemara, Megillah Tezayin Amud Aleph. That night was the night of the 16th of Nisan. What do we do on the 16th day of Nisan? Those of you in the Daf Yomi, we learned it today. We offer the Minchas HaOmer, that the new grain, Chadash, that anything that is harvested after the 15th of Nisan, by bringing the Minchas HaOmer that allows us now to eat the new grain. So, when Mordechai, did we do Yud Aleph yet or not? Did we do Pasuk Yud Aleph? No. Vaikach Haman es alvush v'sasus. So Haman took the horse, Vayalbeshes Mordechai Vaykaver b'cha ba'ir, carried him around the city. Vayikra l'fanav kacha yaseh la'ish asher melech hafetz b'karo. So when Mordechai was at the gate teaching Torah, and when Mordechai saw Haman coming with the horse, he told the Chachamim around him, listen, Haman wants to kill me because I'm teaching Torah and I went against the Gzeir of the Melech to bow down. So Mordechai stood up to daven. And Haman waited until he finished davening. And Haman then says, the little bit of flour that your makriv, that you offer to Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, has won out over the 10,000 talents of silver, which we said was billions of dollars, that I gave to the king. Haman tells him, here, get up, I'm going to put these clothing on you. The king has chosen you for honor. So Mordechai said, no, well, if I'm going to be given this kind of honor, I've got to go to the bathhouse and I have to take a haircut. It's not decency to go unless you're dressed properly. So Esther immediately gave an order that all of the barbers should close down and all the bathhouses should close down. The Yonasan Abjad says it's the second day of Yontif, so they couldn't do malacha because most of them were Jews. So Haman himself put him in the bathhouse and washed him. Remember, Haman had sold himself to Mordechai as an eved, and then he also had to cut his hair. He served as his barber. And he sighed, he gave a kvetch. And Mordechai asked him, why are you kvetching? He says, someone as important as me, the king, look at what's happened to me. I'm becoming a bath attendant and a barber. And the Medrash says, Haman saper shel kvar kotzmai 22 shana. Before Haman was in his position of royalty, he was a barber in Kvar Katzum for 22 years. That was his profession. Now, Vayarkiveu b'soch hayir, when Haman was when Haman was leading the horse through the city, Haman's daughter saw all of this from the roof. She assumed that the man that was sitting on the horse is her father Haman, and the person leading him is Mordechai. So she took a chamber pot. You know, in those days when they went to the bathroom, they didn't have outdoor, they didn't, they had it underneath their bed. They would just go to the bathroom in this pot. And she dumped it on the head of her father. When Haman looked up, and then the daughter realized that it was her father, she jumped from the roof and killed herself. Vayoshev Mordechai l'shar HaMelech. After this, Mordechai goes back to the gate, and Chazal say he went back and he took off the royal clothes, he put down the sackcloth and began fasting again. And Haman goes back to his house, depressed, and of course his head is covered, he's humiliated. That's how Meforshim explain, or because the way Chazal say, he had all this chamber pot stuff dumped on his head. By the way, why did Mordechai go back to David? So Mordechai told, because remember, he was teaching children Torah, and he had hoped to talk to the king to get rid of the decree as the reward for him having saved the king's life. But now that the king has already given him a reward, he's lost an opportunity. Now we can only rely on Hashem. That's how the Mamloes learns. The Avel, now when it says Avel v'chafui rosh, he was mourning for his daughter who had killed herself. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayisaper Haman lezer shishto l'chol avav, eis kol hashakro. Listen to the wording of the pasuk. Haman tells his wife and his friends everything that has happened. Vayomru lo chachama v'zer shishto. Even though it mentions Zeresh Ishto first, then the Oavav, here in the response to Haman, it's Chachamav first, and then the Zeresh Ishto. Im Mizera Yudim, Mordechai. If Mordechai is from the Jewish people, Asher Hachilosel Impol Ufanav, you have started falling in front of him, Lo Suchalo, you will not defeat him. You will fall in front of him. And we'll see what advice they gave him. They had stayed in his house. They were the ones who had given him the advice to build the gallows. And they were waiting, did the king give permission? Now look at this word Asher Karahu, from the word Mikra. Mikra means it's a coincidence. And Haman does not see Yad Hashem here, like Amalek. Remember it says Asher Korcha Baderech. Amalek cooled us off. That's number one. Or Amalek doesn't believe that Hashem controls the world. Everything is just random, like Stephen Hawking and the scientists. That everything, it just happens. So Haman thinks himself that, it's a bad luck. I went to go to the king to hang Mordechai. It happened to be the day when all of a sudden Achashverosh decides to reward Mordechai. But he's repaired the debt. I'm still going to request to hang Mordechai. Now, here is where the advisors and his wife say you're crazy. They now say that because initially, the first time, Zeresh had answered first. Now it's the wise people who answer. Because Haman, in a sense, is blaming her for advice that didn't work out because she said go early in the morning, and he went early, and he happened to come on to Achashverosh at the wrong time. So the Chachamim understood that the Jews are compared to the dust of the earth and the stars in the heaven. If they fall all the way down to the dust. But when they rise to the stars. That's what the Gemara in Megillah says. Now they have seen evidence that Mordechai is rising. They understood that the command that Achashverosh gave to Haman to lead Mordechai is not mikra, it's not coincidental. It's the beginning of the rise of the Jews and of the downfall of Haman. That they advise that the only hope for Haman is kinapolti polufanav. You must prostrate yourself before Mordechai and beg his forgiveness and get rid of the gallows. So they advise the napolti polufanav. They advise him is to apologize to Mordechai. I want to read the Gemara itself so you hear the language. Tetzainam no. Kinapolti polofanav. Dorsh Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. Shtei nefilos halalu lama. Armela umazu meshula la'afar. The Jewish people have compared to the sands of the earth. Umeshulak l'kochavim, into the stars. Kishen Yordin ad afar. When they fall all the way down. Kishen oilin ad l'kochavim. When they rise, they go up to the stars. And that's our history. And the Mi'im Mizer Yehudim, the Gemara says, is this Mordechai from other Shvatim? Or then you'll be able to rise against him. But Imi Shevet Yehuda, Ubinyamin, V'Ephraim, U'Menashe, what do they all have in common? That they were Binyamin, Ephraim, and Menashe were the children of Rachel. Because Yehuda d'chsiv Yadcha ba'oref oivecha. Yehuda will always have his hand on his enemy. And he was the Melech. And this Masoris ein Eitzav nofel al biyad banei shel Rachel. That the children of Rachel have the schus of defeating Amalek. So the last pasuk, Odam medabrim imo, quickly, while they were speaking to him, v'sarasei melech higiu. Why is this being done quickly? Because the advice was given that Haman should apologize to Mordechai. Well, Hashem doesn't want that to happen. He wants it to go quickly. Yavilu means quickly, to bring Haman. Esther. Because the divine intent is that Haman is going to be hung on the gallows that he built for Mordechai. Any comments, ha'aros, other questions? God willing, we will learn Perek Zion next week.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.